What beauty spot is this, you may well ask? Well, it's a service area on the M6. It's actually in Lakeland, the English Lake District, and it's called Killington Lake Services. Not only does it have the service area here, but there's a Days Inn hotel. We booked a room here for the night, and guess what? They gave us a room with a lakeside view. We do strike lucky on these things. Anyway, while we're in the Kendall area, this is obviously out on the motorway, but we're going to head into town and climb that rather steep hill and have a look at the old ruins of the medieval castle. We're flying over the village of Higher Kineton on the Flintshire-Cheshire border and heading towards our bungalow on the outskirts of said village. The village itself, I've been living here for 25 years and I'm now saying goodbye to, has two pubs. At the Chester end there's the Royal Oak, lots of outside seating which has been useful in the current lockdown. We have, I have to admit, spent the odd afternoon there having a quick drink, and it's walking distance from our house. A little further away at the other end of the village, our second pub, the Swan, which has some fine food. In the middle of the village there's the church with its graveyard, there's the village shop. One of the attractions to the village is its school. People move here to get their kids into this school. And we also have a community centre, lively events going on quite regularly when times are normal. And opposite that, the old school building has now been converted into office space and more recently into a coffee shop called Walter's. Now, they started out during lockdowns doing takeaway, but now everybody comes and sits in, or mainly out to be fair. It's got a nice courtyard outside where you can have your coffee and cake. We also have a scout hut in the village for those young people who want to be adventurous, and for those who want to get fit, there's an outdoor gym as well. But let's go back to our bungalow, which we're selling, as I say, with moving on. For me, it's 25 years, and for Ruth, she's been here since 1980, so it's a bit of a haul. The people who've been viewing our bungalow said that they didn't like the huge pond I had in the back garden, so I've been digging up the front garden and transporting it round the back to fill in the pond. If there's one thing I will do to the garden before I leave, it won't be weeding, it will be filling in that pond so that people have got a fresh start with a proper garden in the back. I've spent the last few months spending the odd hour or two here and there digging out this garden with a little help from my friends, one of which was Robin. He was always hanging around and watching what I was doing, no doubt because I was unearthing worms at the same time and various other insects. But he seemed to become my friend during a period of about 6 or 8 weeks when I was doing this. We also had some human friends help us with the garden, which was good, so we're very grateful to all our friends for doing that. We must have pulled out tons and tons of weeds from all various parts of the back and front garden and taken them to the tip, but these things, they're called teasels, we left them in because although we didn't plant them, they must have blown from somewhere, they seem very attractive. And I did look it up and find that goldfinches are quite attractive to teasels. Didn't actually see any goldfinches of our own, but the inset picture shows that they do like teasels. So there we go, that's our little teaser with the teasels. It's the time of year for eating and drinking outdoors, and there's lots of places these days that you can go and do just that. This is the coast of the Wirral that looks across at North Wales to the hills, and this is Net's Cafe in Little Neston. We've been here a few times now, and I think that even the sparrows are getting to know us. A little further along the cycle track and footpath towards Neston itself, there's the Harp Inn. Now this is what it looked like when I first saw it. It hadn't changed much since 1910, but these days it's a lot more modern. It's got outdoor seating, and this was a fairly quiet day. We have actually been past here when it's been packed and there's been cars everywhere, but this was midweek and a lovely view across to the hills. Amazon Tech, and it was about 6 months ago when I first saw one of these draw up outside our bungalow, and as most people probably know now, Amazon have invested heavily in electric vans for their delivery. A bit of a project, I gather, in conjunction with Mercedes. Amazon have other tech. You probably know about their lockers, and in case you don't, I'll just show you one. This is at a local pub. The Royal Oak, which we featured earlier on in this program, has an Amazon locker in the car park. So I walk up to the locker to get my delivery with my phone in hand. I fire up the app on my phone and I walk towards the locker. It recognizes me via Bluetooth and it opens the locker. I take away my package. Simples. Quickly referring back to electric vehicles of last month, and James May was worried about where certain people might be able to charge them. This is the Park and Ride car park at Lancaster. So you go into town to work on your bus and you leave your car charging up on the Park and Ride. Seems a good solution, they've got plenty of space for that. A little further up at Carnforth is a place I visit quite a lot. In fact, I've visited it by train normally, but we did actually drive here this time. And the town centre looks like this. We had our lunch here and I went and checked out the station again. The other thing I noticed was that electric vehicles are starting to appear here, and there's one outside Greg's that's being charged up on an on-street parking and charging bay. There are several of these around Carnforth, so if you've got an electric car in this area, no problem. Most of the trains don't stop at Carnforth, but I stop here because there's a model shop where I can get my garden railway stuff. It appears they have a microbrewery as well. That's not something I'd noticed before. Carnforth models was shut, so I just had to move on. We popped into Tesco's in Carnforth and they had electric car charging points as well. And on the way we passed the oldest house in Carnforth and also a pretty old Rolls Royce as well. Fintech is financial technology, and today I'm going to deal with the banks who have the best digital technology for their operations. I've got a lot of cards here. None of them are for the legacy banks that we've come to know and hate over the years. After the global financial crash in 2008, the government decided it was about time there was more competition to this cartel of half a dozen banks that we've had for decades, and they started issuing a whole load of new licenses so new banks could operate in this country. No branches, no bricks and mortar, basically. It all worked on your mobile, and that's been great. Who needs a bank when you think about it if you can do everything else on your phone? And you can. You can pay a check-in on your phone now by scanning it. So this is how it started. There was a company called TransferWise who were one of the first to challenge the banks on the fees they charge for foreign transactions and for sending money abroad, which were huge at the time. And TransferWise started doing it for only a few pence and giving you the proper exchange rate, the interbank exchange rate, instead of making up their own. And then they started a current account. That was the first debit card they had. It says Hello World on it. The latest one doesn't say that, but the idea of that, which was new at the time, was that you could hold in your current account loads of currencies. And at the time I was holding euros, of course, because I was going to Spain a lot, and I was holding Bulgarian lev, and I could transfer my sterling into any of these currencies, and more recently into Australian dollars when some of our family went to live out there. So that was the advantage of TransferWise before any of these other banks got started. One of the first into Britain was Fidor, German bank. I tried all these, by the way, which is why I've got all these cards. And Fidor, they've closed down in Britain now, but they never actually fully translated all their stuff from German, so your bank statement was half in German. Fidor failed. Revolut's still with us. Revolut are not a full regulated bank, but again, they're like TransferWise. They do all the currency stuff, and in Revolut you can hold currencies and use the card all over the world at no extra cost. And this is, of course, the way to go. And it was really two fingers to the legacy banks, the dinosaurs of last century, who were still charging you a small fortune if you dared to want to go outside the country. Then business accounts. I have a couple of businesses. One's a limited company. And it was extremely difficult to get a company account. I would spend days, weeks, and sometimes months with one of them, Barclays, it was months, and still get nowhere. I even travelled to London to Metro Bank because it was believed that they were one of the challenger banks. No, they had underwriters, a long process to get approved, and I'd taken a train to London to get it done in a day. When I found out I couldn't, I walked away. So, Lime Street Station, waiting for a train, and I hear about Tide, a new business bank. I got onto my phone, downloaded their app, and I had my business account open within 2 minutes after doing all the quick ID. If you've got a limited company, all your details are at Company's House. They just connect with Company's House and get them from there. You don't have to do anything. So there it was, my first limited company account with Tide. I moved on through various cards. Monese, they were another one that I tried. They were okay, but they insisted that I was Brian Eric Smart, and everything I did had to have my full name on them. That's never been something I wanted to do. And then, of course, the others that are fairly well known now, Starling, who we're still with. I think the first cards I saw that were that way round. And so I've got, well, we've still got, my wife and I have still got a joint account. She's still got a Starling account. So have I. Never paid a penny in charges or anything. Coconut, they launched a bank thinking, we'll try, everybody's looking for a new angle so that you'll go with them. Coconut had the idea that they'd do your accounting. So in Coconut's banking app, you could issue your invoices and track them, and when you're paid, they could mark them paid and they could do your accounting. But if you've been doing business accounts for years and got used to all the facilities that proper software has, Coconut software just wasn't up to it. N26 came to Britain. They're a German bank, and they were pretty good. I've still got an N26 card because they came to several European countries, and when they moved to Barcelona and Madrid, I took an account in Spain, got a Spanish IBAN, and all my Spanish apartment stuff is done through N26. They pulled out of Britain after Brexit, so don't bother looking at them. Anna, a little bit strange. They were the bank that had a notification that was a cat meowing, and they went through great lengths to find the right cat.
We need like a happy, strong, in control contactless sound. No.
No?
No.
Anna also wanted to do your accounts for you. That was an AI. Anna was an AI, an artificial intelligence that tried to talk to you in the app and suggest that you needed to get some money in and you needed to chase your invoices, and it just didn't work. And then Monzo. Now Monzo were the first challenger banks, they were calling them at the time. They were the first challenger bank to come along some years back, 2016 I think I went with them, that just about did everything. Their UI, the user interface on the app, was brilliant. It always has been. They haven't meddled with it and so-called improved it so it becomes unusable. And I still think Monzo are the best. My property business, that's with Monzo's business account, but you can only have one. If you could have more than one, I'd move my company with them too, because they are a bit better than Starling. And the other one I've tried recently, because it did share trading built in. We've done accounts built in, that didn't work. Share trading built in, an Italian bank this time, Fineco. So I got a Fineco debit card, and I did actually buy shares through their trading thing. But the banking side of it wasn't up to much. It was a bit like one of the bricks and mortar banks would do last century. So Fineco, not a good bank, but okay for share trading.
Fineco Bank, il mondo al presente.
So that's financial technology and what it had to offer. If you've never been with a digital bank and you've never seen the advantages, that's something I'll show you in the future. We did actually catch the park and ride bus into the town centre of Lancaster, and this was the first time I've been on a bus since March 2020, so that was a breakthrough point for me. Lancaster's an interesting place. It's on a river, as you can see, and it also has a castle. It's more complete than Kendall's, and there's a priory as well, and quite an interesting old town to look round. Well, we seem to have ended up at a bar, so I think it's time to say goodbye. You can leave us to it now if you want. We're going to end this month's video with some shots back at Killington Lake. It's a place that I absolutely enjoyed being, and we've stayed there a few nights over the years. It's a fantastic lake, and we were pleased to have some decent weather. So here's a little closer look at how the whole M6 service area and the lake is set out, with which I'll say goodbye, and do join me again next month. As the song says, see you in September.